It is, I think, admirable and exceptional that we have covered so much work in the last year since we were together in Ottawa a year ago. So of course, what is on everyone's mind these days is the COVID pandemic. We have organized our response to the pandemic along 7 lines of work. First of all, being education. We have been helping our educators and teachers prepare for distance and online learning. And we thank Tatiana Sunak and the National Education Committee for the work they have done in this regard. We've also been organizing multiple webinars and workshops for individuals, organizations, and interest groups. And we thank everyone who has assisted in delivering those workshops on a number of themes. In this, we have been supported by the Government of Canada and the Red Cross, and we acknowledge their contribution. Close to my heart, of course, is the work that we are doing with our seniors and vulnerable members of our community. And thank you to Dr. Slavko Grod and the Seniors Network for everything that you do. We have been trying to stay connected and informed. Our staff in Ottawa have prepared a weekly COVID-19 bulletin that updates you on new government initiatives and support available to various members of our community. And Marianna Sauka is principally responsible for this. Дякую, Marianna. We've also advocated for our community and our organizations. We've worked with the federal government to ensure support for nonprofits and our groups that are engaged in cultural programming, and of course our charitable organizations. We've also supported vulnerable children in Ukraine, working together with Help Us Help, the Canada-Ukraine Foundation, Meest Corporation, and Mykola Kuleba, the Children's Ombudsman in Ukraine. We have participated in the COVID-19 Children's Relief Initiative. And finally, thank you to Olesa Lucio-Andriovich for coordinating regular meetings with the leadership of our provincial councils, who have also recently focused their work on coordinating COVID-19 activities and outreach. The regular day-to-day work of the UCC continues along the 3 pillars of growing our community, advancing our Ukrainian-Canadian identity, and of course, supporting Ukraine. Within those parameters, we have accomplished much in the last year. We have engaged with the government and all the political parties and various members of parliament. We developed 6 key policy priorities: strengthening Canada-Ukraine defense and security relations, supporting democratic and economic reform in Ukraine, fighting online hate and disinformation, welcoming newcomers to Canada, helping our culture flourish, and ensuring the quality, safe, and affordable care for seniors is available. We created policy briefs on 6 key themes. Those can be found on our website, and I know that they have been widely shared. During the last federal election, we surveyed all of the national parties and local candidates on their positions on these issues. And the surveys, of course, individual survey responses are available as well. Following the election, our staff in Ottawa held in-person meetings with members of parliament and senators to brief them on issues that are important to our community. And of course, during the pandemic, our advocacy moved to online meetings. We've also held meetings with the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development on COVID-19, and we've engaged with the Minister of Heritage and Minister of Diversity and Inclusion and Sport on support for nonprofit arts and cultural groups. And when Parliament returned for the fall session, the UCC presented briefs to members of Parliament on 3 immediate priorities for the fall session, namely the COVID-19 response and better outcomes for seniors and support for caregivers, assistance to nonprofits and community educational, cultural, and arts programs, and of course, support for Ukraine in the face of continuing Russian aggression. After the throne speech, we wrote to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs on engagement with experts and practitioners from the Ukrainian Canadian long-term care homes in developing national standards for long-term care. And we had many highlights of the past year. On your screen, you will see photographs from the tribute gala honoring outgoing Ambassador Roman Vashchuk and Oksana Smirachuk. On February 1st, we feted them at a gala which was successful in raising $100,000 in support of the Roman Vashchuk and Oksana Smirachuk Fund within the UCC Charitable and Educational Trust, which supports the UCC Parliamentary Internship Program, as well as the UCC Community Development Fund. And we are grateful to all of our sponsors and those who attended the event for this effort. The Parliamentary Internship Program continues. Our most recent intern, Anna Bodnar, was placed in the office of Peter Fonseca this spring and fall, and upcoming appointments of our next two interns. One actually began working last week with David Sweet, and the next intern will start in January. This is an extremely important program for engaging our youth in our country's civic life. And we thank our committee and its chair, Alex Ilchenko, for overseeing and stewarding this program. Of course, the Triennial Congress took place a year ago with 250 delegates participating. Thank you again to Hanya Sheptur for her leadership in organizing the Congress, and the community in Ottawa for their hospitality, and the many volunteers who made the Congress an outstanding success. We will hear a report on that Congress later in the agenda. And of course, COVID, one of the unexpected benefits of COVID, of course, is the ease with which we can engage with some of our smaller and more distant communities. We have been working with the communities in Canada's north, in the Atlantic provinces, and rural regions across the country. In October, we had a very successful outreach event with the Atlantic Canada community, and you can see videos of that on YouTube. And thank you to Marianna Sauka for leading these engagement efforts. We, of course, have also been advancing our Ukrainian Canadian identity, most notably through Holodomor commemoration and education. We thank Irka Mitsak for leading the National Holodomor Awareness Committee, which leads and coordinates our community's efforts in commemorating the Holodomor every year in local communities from coast to coast. And of course, thank you to Valentina Coreliu for her leadership of the Holodomor Education Committee, through which the UCC participates in organizing teachers and educators conferences which focus on the teaching of Holodomor. And every year we commemorate, together with the Canada-Ukraine Parliamentary Friendship Group and the Ukrainian Embassy, the Holodomor on Canada's Parliament Hill. It is attended by members of Parliament and all parties. And this year, of course, we will be hosting a national online event, and more information will be coming to you on that shortly. This year, we are also going to be participating in the commemoration of the Holodomor by the Chicago Holocaust Museum, and that is an extremely important and strategic recognition of the Holodomor. And we thank our colleague on the board of directors of the World Congress, Marta Farion, for leading that effort. And of course, many of you will have received emails and petitions on the inclusion of Holodomor, the term Holodomor in the dictionary. This is an effort led by the National Holodomor Awareness Tour. And the deadline for your submissions for your vote is coming up on December 1. So if you haven't voted yet, do so. And of course, share the petition with your networks. We also commemorated an important centenary, and that is the end of Canada's first national internment operations. We thank Boris Sidoruk for his leadership in coordinating a series of online events to build awareness and education about the internment operations, culminating in the online ceremony on June 20th. And of course, our branches in Alberta and Manitoba held additional events to commemorate this anniversary. One of our favorite events of the year, of course, is the Vyshivanka Day. It's something we do on a lighter note. And again, as with everything else, this was done virtually this year. We did a flash mob on May 21st, and we were able to engage many members of our community as well as members of Canadian Parliament and political leaders. The UCC annually participates in recognition of and remembrance of genocides. And in this, we are joined by the Armenian, Jewish, Roma, Rwandan, Ukrainian, and Yazidi citizens of Canada. And this is an annual event that we will continue to participate in. And of course, Black Ribbon Day, which is observed on August 23rd, the UCC and Central and East European Council in Canada jointly held an online commemoration with Belarusian activist and politician Andrei Sannikov and Russian human rights and democracy activist Vladimir Kara-Murza. It was moderated by our friend and colleague and president of the CEEC, Marcus Kolga. And of course, the highlight of this coming year will be the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the UCC. We have developed a series of videos, one for each decade, that will focus on the work of the UCC. And we will be showing you this introductory video later in our meeting. And the final pillar, which of course is supporting Ukraine, UCC has and continues to work with all political parties as well as provincial and municipal governments to maximize support for the people of Ukraine. We regularly meet and brief high-ranking officials of the federal government. The UCC is also co-chair of the Canada-Ukraine Stakeholder Advisory Committee, which brings together representatives of our community and high-ranking officials of several departments of Canada's federal government. And we thank our Director of Government Relations, Pavlo Migus, for his leadership in chairing this important body. As you have heard mentioned, in March of 2020, just as the pandemic was taking off, our CEO, Ihor Mikhachesin, accompanied Canada's Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Francois-Philippe Champagne, on his visit to Ukraine. In March of 2020, we participated in public consultations launched by Global Affairs Canada on the possible modernization of the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement. In June, we held an online conference, Ukraine Reforms 1 year after the Toronto conference, Progress, Pitfalls, and Canada's Role, in partnership with the Canadian International Council that was chaired by our former ambassador to Ukraine, Roman Vasychuk. And of course, that brings us to today, when difficulties in Ukraine have caused increasing concern not only for UCC, but for our G7 community, and most notably with respect to attempts to undermine the independence of the National Bank, as well as other institutions, targeting of political opponents and legal persecution of them, the appointment to senior positions of members of the former Yanukovych era government, and of course the recent decision by the Constitutional Court that undermines the most important pillars of Ukraine's anti-corruption policy. These are all disquieting manifestations of the increasing influence of oligarchs and vested interests in the Zelensky administration and the parliament, and threaten the reversal of important reforms undertaken since the Revolution of Dignity. We will continue to stress to the Canadian government that Ukraine's partners need to speak publicly and forcefully on these issues, and stress to Ukraine's government that continued international support is contingent on the Ukrainian government's ability and willingness to implement those reforms to which Ukraine has committed. We are also mindful of what is happening in neighboring countries, and most notably in Belarus, together with partners of the Belarusian-Canadian Alliance and the Central and East European Council. We wrote to Minister Champagne in the first days of the crisis, urging a strong response from Canada to the falsification of election results in Belarus and, of course, subsequent state-led violence against demonstrators. Our office continues to engage with and assist the Belarusian Canadian community in their advocacy efforts. In September of 2020, Canada and the UK led the way in announcing sanctions against self-proclaimed President Lukashenko and his regime. We have also hosted a webinar with the Belarusian Canadian Alliance and led by former Ambassador Roman Vashchuk and members of our academic community, Dr. Oля Onuch and Dr. Alexander Lanoshka. So I know that our staff works day and night to keep up this incredible pace of activity. So a quick look to the future and what is going to be keeping us busy in the coming months. And that is the establishment of the Community Education Leadership Program. We're in the planning stages of that. This will be a series of seminars that we will offer to member organizations and the wider community. Where we launched a pilot seminar, Politics 101, with Anna Bodnar, our former intern, about how Canada's political and legislative systems work. It is essential that for us to have a voice in the Canadian polity, we need to be active participants in it. And of course, many of you have approached me with respect to the establishment of a program that is similar to the Birthright program. We are doing a feasibility study of how Canada can pilot such a program. And when circumstances permit, this will provide Ukrainian Canadian youth with the opportunity to visit Ukraine, learn about their heritage, and become more involved in developing people-to-people ties between Canada and Ukraine. And of course, Canada, as the strongest diaspora, is the obvious place to pilot such a program. So in conclusion, I want to thank all of our volunteers and supporters from coast to coast to coast, and our board of directors, the chairs and members of all of our committees, and there are many of you, our provincial council presidents and all the members of those councils, our local branches, their presidents and members, and of course, our generous donors, members of the President's Cabinet, the President's Circle, the President's Club, friends of UCC, and all of our donors for your contributions in keeping our community strong and united. Of course, we had an outstanding response from our sponsors for the Vashchuk and Smirachuk Tribute Gala. You'll see all of them listed on your screen. And a special thank you to our staff, led by Ihor, and with Orest and Marianna, Asa, who leads us in fundraising, and of course, Lesa Demchuk in our Winnipeg office. And a special thank you to members of the executive committee with who make sure that all of this work gets done and executed. My co-vice presidents, Olesya Lutsy-Wondryovich and Alex Idchenko, as well as our members from coast to coast, Natalia Yatzkevich, John Denisik, Mikhailo Shvets, Kasian Soltikevich, and a special thank you today to Hanya Sheptur and Oля Grod for their preparation of today's Congress. Дуже вам всім дякую.